Hello and welcome to episode 154 of the Comedy Slab. And why were you waving at that particular point? Are you feigning excitement, young Shane?
You said hello. I was waiting. Sorry.
Waving, not drowning. I think you were drowning. I think we're all drowning. Anyway, it's lovely to have you along. He is Shane O'Connor in the Midlands of England. And yes, you're not missing anything that you can't see my screen with him on Skype. And I'm Adrian Lacey in the southeast of England. As we speak, it's a rather warm day. I've got no shoes on. Oh, get me and my radical ways. The Comedy Slab, if you're new to us, a special welcome to you, and an equally special welcome if you're not new to us, if you're old to us. The Comedy Slab is a notional slab of marble upon which we do give a nice little prod with a scalpel to our chosen comedy. We take it in turns to set each other homework, and you homework as well. And be it TV, radio, or podcast, digital, or whatever, we put said comedy on the slab and prod it about a bit, see what we make of it, give it a score out of 5 each, totting it up to a score out of 10 at the end of the show. But just before we get into prodding a certain BBC Radio 4 show with Mark Steele and Claire Skinner in, it's called Unite. We will get to that in a mo. First, we like to, well, I don't know if this counts as our usual comedy news, but I quite like it. You chose this, didn't you? Do you want to talk us through this one? Something from Stephen Fry on EastEnders. Well, not actually.
Well, it's not so much comedy news. It's more comedian news then, I suppose. You're right. I mean, it's not. Well, he said something. He was doing an interview, and he said something which resonated with me that I've been saying for, I don't know, probably. When did EastEnders start?
85, was it?
82? Oh, 85, was it? Okay.
84 or 85.
Thrown out the pub quiz team for not getting it right. But yeah, I mean, I've always thought this, that he said EastEnders is just isn't funny, and that's where it fails. That's where it falls down, unlike Coronation Street. And I thought, that's always been the case, hasn't it? It's always. I mean, I haven't watched either for a good number of years,
or a number of.
I've watched years. A number of good years, yes. Which I've now got round the back in case I need any spare tyres. No, I haven't. It's been a longer time that I've watched EastEnders. I haven't watched that for a good many years. But that was the thing that put me off, was that you was watching an episode of EastEnders and you think, oh, glad that's over. I feel so. I think the difference is that I always thought that Coronation Street, I guess, in a way, was more aspirational as well, was more upbeat, more upward looking. I mean, you worked on EastEnders, which is why I kind of thought it'd be a nice one to talk about, because you've seen it from the inside. I mean, do they have a perception themselves of what they're like?
Well, hey, look, I haven't seen it for years, and I haven't worked on it for years. But I mean, the original producer, Julia, it's gone Smith, I think. Not been with us for some years, but I mean, she definitely. Do you remember? I saw the first episode. I thought I need to see this, and it's just as well. So it wasn't to know then that I was going to work on it, or that you would ask me these questions 36 years later. But you know, be prepared. You know, it's always possible. So it opens with a death. There's a dead body, isn't it? And it was deliberately extremely dreary looking as a show. And I mean, I worked on the sound side of things. We were under orders to make the dialogue virtually as difficult to get a grip on as the lighting. Getting to work out what's going on in the picture. So it was obviously a very deliberate thing. I don't know if it's cheered up at all, but there was always some light in the shade. I mean, we talk about Barry from EastEnders with a huge amount of affection, you and me. Sean Williamson, who cropped up in something very different that we were talking about in the comedy news just the other week. But so he was in it well, when I was working on it 20 years plus ago.
But he was never funny, was he? Like the roles that Ricky Gervais gave him. He was always like a kind of really sad clown, I remember, that people used to either take advantage of or, pretend they liked him and then they didn't like him. And he'd always end up with this big sort of scene where, you're supposed to be, if you're on his side, crying your eyes out.
Yeah.
But he never really had. It was more of a clown than a comic role. I think he always had. I can't remember any highlights in there. I can't remember any characters who you kind of think, they always kind of get a bit of a laugh from them.
There was another character comes to mind. It's I have to remember which one's the actor and which one's the character name. I think it was the character was Nigel, played by Paul, whose surname, forgive me, has gone from out. But
he went into Casualty, didn't he, as a consultant? I've seen clips of it. Again,
he clearly had a lot of potential that wasn't showing in EastEnders.
He's a fab actor. He really is.
Is he a good consultant? Would you trust your life to him?
I wouldn't. I thought if I belonged, he might mention money.
I'm going to charge you next time you quote Frankie Howard completely out of context.
No. No, don't. So I unbent.
So there I was.
If he came towards me with a scalpel, I think I'd probably have a different view of him. But no, I just thought he surprised me with his range because I kind of thought, that's Nigel from EastEnders. And then he was like, all right, you're just a consultant, so you just put a posh voice on. But, he did it very convincingly. So, I thought he was quite good.
Makes you wonder how many consultants are just putting on posh voices and they haven't done all the training.
But a lot of them, I would have thought. But again, he was a really sad character. He wasn't a comic. He was a fool. He was a fop. He was, he wasn't.
We don't hear that word "fop" enough, do we? In my view,
no.
I remember Vic Reeves calling
"fop off," you big fopper.
Yeah, fopping nuisance. Vic Reeves called Bob Mortimer. They would have been in one of their characters, but he said, "You work shy fop." Lovely expression.
And it's, to me, it's about the balance. And this is when I then started wondering, well, what's the balance for me, with a comedy, the balance, quite obviously, it should make you laugh more than it makes you cry or make you think. The reason I mention that is because I think Coronation Street strays into territory the other way. For example, there's a character, and again, I haven't watched it for years, but I know he's still in it. There's a character, I don't know the actor's name, but there's a character called Dev, who used to run the corner shop. He was just, humorous to the ridiculous extreme, and it became ludicrous then. It became meaningless in a way because it was always him. It was always ridiculously stupid stories that you could see were engineered to try and make you laugh. And you kind of, you've lost it then, haven't you? It's gone the other way.
Did it perhaps go astray into farce at all?
Very much so, I think. His character, I think, I don't know if it's the way he plays it sometimes, I'm not sure, but I'd have to sit down and analyse it, but I kind of get the impression that it was the writing that was farcical, but I think he's raised an interesting point. I think it's fair enough for him to say. It's just that I suppose it's a shame because they're both, or maybe it's a good idea that because they're both rivals, EastEnders and Coronation Street, because there are other soaps, aren't there? But they're the two front runners, aren't they? I guess.
Yeah. There's that Miss Dale. What's her first name? Oh, Emma.
Emma. Yeah.
Never seen that. But
I'm so old. I remember Emmerdale when it was Emmerdale Farm.
I remember it when it was Mrs. Emmerdale's Diary. Shall we move on?
Yeah, please.
Before we completely go down history alley with no paddle. Right. So to a show called Unite. It's BBC Radio 4, and. For me, the eye-catching and or ear-catching thing, or certainly the thing that most interested me up front, was the presence of Mark Steel. Now, I said I was going to mention it. I might as well do it now. I saw him as a stand-up during the white heat of what was just then being dubbed the alternative comedy scene. Sort of took over from punk rock in some ways, even down to rooms above pubs that had these days we'd have to talk about pivoting, wouldn't we? But in those days we talked about a change of use or whatever else. So anyway, Mark Steel, I saw at the Comedy Store. It has to be, well, when we were talking about the beginnings of EastEnders, it would be a bit after that, but not so many years after that. Certainly late 80s, so that still puts it over 30 years ago. You said you'd interviewed him. I mean, that's. Do you want to keep your powder dry on that for now, or should we dive straight into those deep waters?
No, it was. He was doing the rounds, I think, and he was touting for suggestions about where he could go for Mark Steele's In Town, the next series that he was doing. And
you would have been in the West Midlands or the East Midlands at that point?
I was in Coventry, I think, at the time.
You'd been sent there.
But yeah. But he'd not long done the show about my hometown of Walsall. And he'd been bemused as to what the hippo was. What the hippo was in Walsall. There was in Walsall. I'm not kidding. This is God's honest truth. Now in Walsall, there's a hippo made of concrete.
Like
and and it used to be allowed. So you say, so I see you in Walsall. Yeah, I'll meet you in Walsall on Saturday. So I see you by the hippo. Yeah, okay.
Right.
And it was a meeting place for people, really. But this hippo was only 2.5 foot.
I was imagining it at least to scale.
In Birmingham, they got a bull, which you'd probably struggle to fit in this room. I think he's probably, it must be about 6 feet high and about, 15 foot long or whatever.
As in the bull
that's
ring
the way,
in Birmingham.
Well, it's to symbolise the bull ring, isn't it? So they've got this bull in the same way that in America in the stock exchange they've got a bull, haven't they? Of course.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of nod to that. Maybe, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, if you're going to do it, you do it that size. You don't like have 2.5 foot concrete hippo. Mark Steel couldn't get his head around the whole idea of a hippo, so we were just talking about that.
And nobody knows. Well, do you think it's an answer to, or even 2 cloven hooves up to Birmingham?
No, because they had the bull sometime afterwards. I mean, the hippo goes back to when I was a kid.
Right.
I mean, I didn't actually live in Walsall. I was born in Walsall. I was born at the hospital in Walsall, the Walsall Manor.
Yeah.
But we lived in Great Bar, so we lived in Birmingham. Really.
So you were literally, as I suspected, to the manor born.
To the Walsall Manor born, yeah. But I have to say, it was a lot posher then. It was in Staffordshire before they'd even invented. Well, this was before they'd invented the West Midlands, you see, which was just something that they invented to upset people, I think. I don't know what it was, but yeah.
Right. Well, I'm not sure if I'm any the wiser why there's a 2.5 foot hippo in Walsall, but
no.
It's good for comedy value. And I don't know if Mark Steel ever visited, as in Mark Steele's In Town, his BBC Radio 4 series as a stand-up. Do you know if he ever went to Walsall proper or?
Yeah, no, that's that. He did do a show from Walsall and obviously talked about the hippo. And of course, the whole place went up when he went, what is this with this hippo? Kind of thing. But yeah, no, really nice guy, really entertaining guy, and a real pleasure to talk to from what I remember. But I've never actually seen him live to the stand-up, but I'm a big fan of that series, Mark Steele's In Town. Big fan.
Right, okay. Well, we may or may not get on to his politics, which is sort of half woven into his fictional character, Tony. So basically, this is a family show. It goes out on BBC Radio 4 at 6:30. So apart from anything else, it's got to be sort of family-friendly in the conventional sense of broadcasting. Now, I set you Series 1, Episode 1 as your homework. Episode title of this particular edition of Unite was Russian money. I'm bound to ask you, I'm literally bound to ask you, because I've tied myself up in knots, as I usually do linguistically. So I'm bound to ask you what you thought when I set the homework. From the sound of feeling friendly towards Mark Steel and kindly disposed, is it reasonable to assume that you were looking forward to listening?
Yeah, half and half really, because I mean there was the fact that I'm a big fan of Mark Steel and his work and his writing, and I think he's quite clever in what he does. And then it's like the kind of the family sitcom, which left me reaching for my revolver. Just the thought of it, not actually. I'm not a fan of family sitcoms. I think it's people go on about you shouldn't do In fact, didn't we talk about last week, hotels? Don't set your thing in a hotel because of Faulty Towers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like there appears to be so many family-based sitcoms that you kind of think, oh. So it was kind of mixed, really.
Right. Well, I guess, for most of us, that's our first experience of drama, isn't it, in the home? Whether we're raised by birth parents,
Wolves,
guardians, or otherwise. And I should point out that Unite is a Golden Path and Rustle Up production for BBC Radio 4. We have 2 audio clips. Let's get on to one of those right now. Let me set the scene then. So essentially, he's got together, so Tony is his character name, Mark Steel playing Tony, who is a working class left-wing South Londoner. That sounds fairly autobiographical to me. I don't think that's any particular shock or stretch. But hey, that's where we begin. He's moved in with Imogen, who's posh. She's played by Claire Skinner. We may or may not get onto Outnumbered a bit later on in passing, if we don't see too much steam coming out of your ears before then. So she plays an upper middle class property developer. Now I'm going to keep my powder dry on what I was going to say there. Anyway, so I've already told you a little more than you would find out from listening to the show. That's as much as I'm going to say on that one for now. We start with what I like to label my clips so that it was my week. I set the homework, so I have to do the editing. That's how we distribute the efforts on this show. And I like to label the clips so that I know what that's the theory, is that I know what I'm talking about vaguely, or can make a passable impersonation for someone who does. I've labelled this one Brothers Grimm because so you've got one brother from one parent and the other brother, well, it's notional brothers. One's posh and one ain't. So we hear a bit of a clash between the two. So Imogen's posh son is called Gideon. Tony's rude boy is called Ashley. And there's, shall we say, a little contretemps at the breakfast table.
Right, I gotta go. First day on site today.
And what site's that? Crapbreakfast.co.uk?
Building site. I'm gonna get ripped while I earn mad dollar, innit?
Oh, in America. That's a bit tough commute.
Can't wait to have a go on the digger.
Don't go using equipment that you haven't been properly trained on.
You're wearing trainers.
Not my best one. Right, I gotta go.
Yeah, me too. I'll see you tonight. There's some leftover aubergine and chickpea curry in the fridge.
Thanks, Mum.
Bye, love. Have a nice dinner.
You're not working today then, Tony? Who's going to write the front page splash if a cat's seen in a kayak on the Thames?
Oh, I've got to see my boss to discuss how we're going to move the title forward in an increasingly fragmented market.
Well, that doesn't sound good.
I've seen it all before, Gideon. The paper gets bought up by a new media group and then a bunch of accountants decide they have to cut costs.
How does it make money? It's free.
Advertising.
What, those black and white adverts for stair lifts and baths with handles?
Yeah, some of them are in colour.
My initial reaction was, why is his son talking like he's black?
Yeah, well, that threw me initially. I mean,
he didn't later on, did he? Was only in that scene. I was just like, what? Why is he talking like that? What?
Well, I don't know that it changed that much, or not for me. I mean, look, the London accent has definitely changed. It's changed over the period we've just been talking about. Since the 80s, noticeably, and linguists and people who analyse these things, other people who pronunciation researchers and so on, do talk about I can't remember the term they use, but it's sort of international. So there has been a black influence, but what threw me, for me, the bigger issue is we sort of hit the ground running, but with no help at all. Did you find that you didn't know where you were, who was who?
Yeah, I think it's difficult, isn't it? Oh, do you want a headline, by the way, before we get
so sorry.
deeper
I knew
into
that. I knew there was something I'd forgotten.
So just quickly shuffle that one in just to tell you. Well, my headline was United We Fall.
Oh.
So you know where I'm going with that one.
Yes.
What was the question? Sorry, you asked me something. I was just about to...
What was the other thing? What was the third thing?
What was the middle bit?
Yeah, what was the question? Yes, the problem was... Well, here we go. This is on BBC Sounds. I washed my mouth out. I nearly said BBC iPlayer, which is from the Arc. So BBC Sounds being the audio division, naturally enough.
I wouldn't mind, but it's the same website. But go on, carry on.
Well,
it's just
exactly.
the screen, the backdrop's a different colour. That's all.
Okay. Well, there's only so many words for sound or audio or that noise that things
I
make.
said, why don't they call it BBC Buggerlugs? I would have thought that would have been brilliant then. You know what I mean?
Well, I thought you'd chosen that name as your stage name, which might have done for your career in BBC Local Radio. I don't know. I'll leave people to discuss that in their own time. But I speak as a former announcer, as regular listeners may know, and
announcer, please. You're an announcer.
Announcer.
Oh, announcer.
Anyway, but the point being that, say what you like about announcers, we got pilloried, we got sent up on impersonations shows, dead ringers and so on. But announcers do at least set the scene. So cut to, you're listening not on linear Radio 4 or even BBC Radio 4 Extra, where this also gets another run or two, but the announcement is shaved off. So if you go straight to Sounds and expect to hit the button and think, oh, it's episode 1, series 1, surely they're going to help me set the scene so I know the backstory. There's none of that. Now, I should confess, there is a pilot show that I only saw afterwards. But then lots of other people might have only seen there was a pilot show afterwards. And also, the golden rule, isn't it? I will let you speak in a moment. But don't you think the point of a pilot is it's not meant to take the story anywhere that you then have to sort of do a screeching handbrake turn or anything? A pilot, called a pilot, is not Series 1, Episode 1, is it? So it can't hit the ground running in the same way.
No, and I'm always really reluctant to be critical of not know. I mean, I will say, look, I didn't know where I was or what was happening or whether these were my feet, but I won't be too critical of it because the alternative very often is my pet hate, horrible, clunky dialogue. Oh, well, Dad, are you going to work today?
As
your
a
job as a journalist.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You get that. I think, oh, God, no, I'd rather just be lost, thanks, than have that rubbish.
But the other problem you've got is it's that much harder, I think, with radio as opposed to TV. At least TV, you can say, all right, the short one is this brother, the tall one's that.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have thought they were a black character, but of course, black characters can be, consultants speaking received pronunciations. So, but at least on TV, you would be able to categorise.
When I said black, I mean like a kind of like a Caribbean patois, wasn't it? That he was in there going to earn dollar. Like what? What do you mean? Which I never understood. As you saying that the black influence on the London accent, I've never understood that because there are sections of society who would be the first to say, well, that's cultural misappropriation. But then I see people on the TV all the while on documentaries, like real people, and like they're talking in like a sort of Caribbean patois, and I'm thinking, well, how is that not a thing that people get aggrieved about and upset about? I don't understand. And so anyway, just suffice to say, I mean, it didn't bother me one way or the other. Apart from it confused me. I'm thinking, and as you say, you're kind of trying to tune into somebody's voice almost immediately, aren't you? There, you're trying to who's that now that I'm listening to? Oh, that's the posh son. And that's the not so posh son. Oh, this is him. That's her. Whatever. So it's just extra confusing, isn't it, in a way?
Yeah. But I think we need to set ourselves a positive goal here. I hear your headline, and I've got my own frustrations, but I'm going to try and steer it towards. Given that, if you were given this scenario, so you might not start from this. I imagine if you were writing your own sitcom, you may not. And Mark Steel is one of 3 writers, I think, credited.
His son is one of the writers, isn't it? Curiously,
is that the case?
Yeah,
I did. Right.
Well, the guy who's talking with the Caribbean patois is his son in real life.
I saw the surname was Steel. I didn't. I didn't check that, but you're.
And if you see him, he's the spit of him as well. They're the spit of each other. So yeah, he's. Elliot Steel, his son. But yeah, and so I kind of wanted to like it in a way because I've got that in the back of my mind. It's a father and son have written this together.
Yeah.
But as you said, I mean, if I was writing a sitcom, I would start, and I'm really disappointed that he didn't, because I kind of thought more of him than this. But I would start anywhere but here, anywhere in the world, anywhere.
As in, not in the home, do you mean?
Yeah, not in one. Everything about it, not in the home. You know, it's like class is the only. Well, it's all right to make people mockery of people if they're posh because they've got no feelings. If they've got money, they certainly have no feelings. It's such an it's an outmoded way of looking at things, and I think it's really quite offensive. You know, it's this idea that you can say anything you like to somebody if they're either middle class or have an aspiration to be middle class, because they will have no feelings and they're allowed to be the butt of your joke. But it's, you know, this bullshit about punching up and punching down. I've never liked it, and I never agree with it. I think it's rubbish. I think it's condescending at best and offensive at worst.
I actually didn't feel it was doing that. I thought it was, given where Mark's coming from politically, I felt actually, and obviously you wouldn't get onto Radio 4 if you were, you know, undiluted Marxism at 6:30 in the evening. Mr. and Mrs. Angry from Tunbridge Wells would be at your throat. I mean, we don't want to give too much away.
That's not really bothered the BBC, has it? But in fairness, they're not really worried about what audiences think. Or, well, they don't. They're not. I mean, I've worked inside it for 15 years, and they're not. They couldn't care less what audiences think. I mean, it's not. Wow. It's not something.
Well, there's so many different subcultures at the BBC. Bits that fret about ratings and public image,
but they don't fret about ratings, do they? But they never have to, because if they want to play the ratings game, they can. And if ratings are poor, they say they're a public service broadcaster, so they always win. They don't fret about ratings. Well, that's the point of the BBC.
I've had a BBC manager breathing down my neck, fretting about ratings until they got better, and then they got rid of me. So,
yeah, that's the issue, is they wanted to get rid of you. It wasn't about ratings. It's disingenuous for them to talk about ratings. I've always said that to them, always has been. But,
okay, well, park that as we must or should. I feel. Where to go with this? I mean, we've got another audio clip up our sleeves. I didn't feel it was having a... Well, if it had a pop at Posh People, then it withdrew the pop and almost apologised for it at the end. As I say, I don't really want to give away the ending, and we always encourage you, dear listener. Obviously, your opinion is as valid as ours, and we'd love it if you got back to us and tell us what you think about it. Details at the end, contact details and so on. But given that he's a very intelligent guy, he's certainly toured around the UK. I imagine he's been all over the world. And I suppose it is slightly surprising that someone with, you know, who looks at the world obliquely as the best comedians do, has gone for a fairly safe formula, but it's a very tricky one to play, isn't it? You almost occupy a contradictory space. Being on BBC Radio 4, don't frighten the horses too much. On the other hand, it's comedy, so you've got to upset some norms and preconceptions and see the world in a slightly different way, and encourage your listeners to do that. Can you not give it any credit on any of those boxes you might or might not tick?
Yeah, I mean, having said all of that, I mean, what I've said so far, I'll be honest with you, I didn't walk away feeling offended, upset, angry. If I felt anything, I think it was kind of just a little bit sad and a bit disappointed that I know that Mark Steel is capable of far better and far funnier. And it to me, it felt very, very linear. Did you get that sense of like there were three strands, weren't there? That you know, Tony has a challenge, that Claire is put in charge, and Ashley works on a building site. Those were the kind of three strands. And you were saying about how you hate coincidences. I was thinking, and I don't want to ruin it, but I was thinking at the end you must have been going up the curtains with all these strands kind of all conveniently tied together. I mean, ridiculously conveniently tied together, don't they?
I'm not going to use the word ridiculously. That's yours. And also,
well, you did last week for going straight. You hated coincidences last week. Come on.
Yeah, I've written a few in the intervening few days. I'm completely compromised.
Are you going easy on it now?
Yeah. Although you were pointing out, you were saying, this sort of setup relates to, this is last week's show, Going Straight, which is follow up to Porridge. But you were saying, oh, no, that's not a coincidence because that was set up in Porridge. And I thought afterwards, actually, it's still a coincidence because it's still the same writers. And, anyway, we'll park that. It wasn't so much coincidences as what got through the net. We're meant to believe as a journalist, but he's on, shall we say, not necessarily the most ambitious of publications. What is it? The Putney and Barnes Informer.
Oh, I'll have you know, it's one of my favourite when I'm in Putney and Barnes.
Well, you obviously know more about Putney and Barnes because you're well informed than I do. But I thought that was quite brave because he hasn't cast himself as a stand-up comedian. So to cast himself as a journalist, but obviously I would allege, no offence to the Putney and Barnes Informer, which I rather suspect might be fictitious. I didn't get around to checking. But there's likely to be an equivalent there. You could say that's a bit of a cliche to have a pop at, as indeed does the posh guy Gideon about local papers. But at least it's not Mark Steel being a stand-up comic. So actually, while we're on that, what did you think of his acting ability?
It made it worse for me because I really liked him. I thought he had this understated, calm delivery, but I didn't like it so much when he kind of got agitated because he did sound like his own stand-up then, which kind of, because I know that, or I've listened to that so often, kind of ruined it a bit for me. But when he was calm and understated and wasn't getting on his hobby horse about something, I loved him. Did you think he was a good act? It's the first time I ever heard him act, and I thought, yeah, he was very good.
Well, I didn't feel it was a massive stretch, but then that's not necessarily what acting's about. It did remind me that when he attempts accents in his stand-up show, which I find them enjoyable, but he's not a whiz at accents, and
No.
he'd probably
and in stand-up you can do them comedically, can't you? The worse you are, the better it is, really, in stand-up.
Yes, because he's got that sort of lovable on-stage persona, and the truth is, you go on stage. Certainly, I think it's a UK phenomenon, definitely, whether it works outside the UK. But you mention to a crowd the town they're in, you immediately, you've got 100, 200 friends in front of you. They just go, woohoo!
Yeah.
Just the mere mention of Walsall, get some reeling in the aisles.
I have to say, though, I think you're doing them a disservice because I think, some of them are real howlers. It's like I can't do a Stoke accent. I can have a reasonable bash at most others, but Stoke just eludes me, and I guess always will until the day I die. But I've heard him do accents in other parts of the country when he's doing Mark Steele's in town, and I thought actually I'm really quite impressed. Not least his West Midlands Walsall accent.
Okay. Well, he's from my now adopted county of Kent. So he's a Swanley lad originally, I believe.
Right.
Well, good on him. And if he's persuaded you, then I'm fine with that.
I'll tell you who talking about accents while we're on the subject. I'll tell you who I thought was just not at his best at all was Simon Greenall, who a lot of people will know as Michael, Alan Partridge's best friend.
Shall we hold it there? Because we're about to hear him in clip number 2. I think it's better. Hold that thought, but make sure you air it immediately afterwards.
It'll either prove or disprove my point, depending on how far into the show it is, but I'll explain more in a little while. But yeah, go on, let's have a listen to the other clip.
Okay, so we have Imogen, who is played by Claire Skinner. She's a property developer, and she is at a meal with this Russian dude, and one other, and they are celebrating what they believe is a done deal.
So, meal deal. Celebrations are in order. Let's get some fizzy-wizzy.
This is such a great deal for everyone, Mr. Kropotkin.
You know, for me, it is dream of lifetime.
I'm so pleased that we could be part of it.
I went to Russia once, you know.
Really? Where did you go?
I went to East Estonia.
This new Russia.
Oh, since when?
Since ever. Duh. It was part of Soviet Union, but then no more, and then leave.
Oh, yes, of course, when the empire crumbled.
What are you saying?
You know, after you lost the Cold War.
We did not.
Oh, it was a draw, if anything. You should have won, really.
Tell me, in your Rocky IV, did Ivan Drago win?
Why are you talk like this, my friend?
And I've always been interested to know, do you still queue 6 months for a loaf of mouldy old bread?
Where did you say you were from again, Mr. Kropotkin?
I was born in a small fishing village, 140 kilometers northeast of Moscow.
And you know, I've got this thing about realism. Who visits Estonia and then comes back and continues to call it Estonia?
I saw you shake your head on Skype as that went through the gate.
Why would you do that? I don't know. I bang my head on the desk when I hear things like that. I don't know why. It's just, and it's for half a laugh. I don't know why.
Well, actually, yeah, and it's a confusing gag anyway because it's not the main gag. The gag is that he thinks Estonia is part of Russia. So why then, if you try and do a double gag, I got hauled over the coals, if it's any consolation, when I tried to do a double gag with a mate of mine who at that stage was a stand-up comedian, and he'd slammed, he shook his head like you did just now on Skype. And then I've never tried it ever since because it's just, it's like trying to drive a car in two separate directions at once, or, it just can't be done.
I mean, the interesting thing is you heard Simon Greenall there, which is, I was just saying before the clip, that a lot of people know as Michael, Alan Partridge's friend. He used to work in the Linton Travel Tavern.
Gibberish.
When he says, I tell you what, Mr. Partridge makes you wonder what it's all about. That's just a noise. That was his thing. But not a lot of people will know that Simon Greenall is also the voice of Alexander Meerkat in the comparethemarket.com adverts.
Which I imagine has paid him an awful lot better over the years than Alan Partridge's show.
Yeah, but and he's not too bad there. But later on, when he gets excited, he goes into full on Meerkat, and I kind of think I can only assume that the champagne sipping types at the BBC who were commissioning this or editing it or whatever don't watch commercial television and have no idea that the rest of the population are going, that's Alexander the Meerkat.
Is that such a crime? I mean, my immediate thought was the exact reverse, which is that someone got on the phone to Simon Greenall and said, "Can you give us your meerkat, please?"
Could be, yeah.
That's the way I saw it.
Yeah, that would never happen at the BBC, would they? They wouldn't ask people to do an advert, would they? An advert callback? No.
Well, it's not actually advertising or endorsing the product, is it? You might argue against that, but hey, you'll argue against anything I say. We heard Kevin Eldon there. I can honestly say, though, and now I have to confess, I can have plot blindness sometimes, and I did have an early start this morning, and we're not that far off the longest day of the year, and it's still light as I look out the window, but it is towards right the other end of the day. But I could not, for the life of me, think of what this character played by Kevin Eldon at the lunch table that we've just heard, what he's there doing. I mean, it's got something to do with the property development. I know you won't hold back here. Am I being thick here?
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm absolutely with you. And also, I have to say, and I pride myself on recognising people's voices, I would never have guessed in a million years that was Kevin Eldon.
No, I didn't get it until I looked at the cast, and then I had to sort of do a sort of...
I still can't hear it now. When you played the clip then, I still can't hear it now. But no, you're right. I'm with you on that one. I had no idea.
I mean, it has been mentioned, hasn't it? But I think that the way it's written, it's like it's been running for 7 series, and it's assumed that everyone has seen the previous 6 series. Oh, you know where we are. And I really wanted to like it more, but I'm just... I'm left out in the cold with, at best, my nose pressed up against the glass on this one.
See, I wanted your perspective on this because you've been a big Southern Jessie, and
guilty as charged,
and me being a big roughy tufty Northerner, just scraping in by the skin of my teeth in the Midlands.
Yeah.
But no, in all seriousness, I did feel that Mark Steel at times got a bit, and I put in my notes here, he gets a bit called "Blimey, where's your trousers?" Did you?
Well, a bit too East End. Sort of
overcompensating working class, you know, kind of a little bit. Yeah, it was a little bit kind of doing it all got a bit Dick Van Dyke at times. You know what I mean? Is it? Did you get that or not?
That didn't particularly worry me. Well, I wonder if it's the reverse, that he slightly moves himself up the social scale just a little bit, just subtly, for his Mark Steel on tour or comes to town, whatever. I could be wrong on that. But we both wanted to like this, as indeed we want to like any show, I think, we put on the old Comedy Slab, because we're not quite as self-denying as we might sound at times. We do actually, we like a laugh. And sadly, this doesn't quite seem to have been it. Who's going to go first with their markings?
I don't mind. I will. If you, do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go on then.
I will give it. Oh, I'm teetering between 1 and a 1.5.
Well, teeter on the generous side, surely.
I'm going to give it a 1. I'm afraid.
Blimey,
it's a 1. But
gosh.
But yeah, but you know, it didn't offend me, it didn't upset me, I didn't get aggravated by me. I was just kind of, if I had to sum it up in a word, it'd be meh.
Yeah, that's MEH, I take it.
That's the one.
Okay, well, I'm going to, but I like your scoring when I have to follow it in this sort of situation, because it makes me look generous at 2.5. But that's actually that's only 50%, isn't it? 2.5 out of 5, and your one makes 3.5 out of 10, 35%. I think they're going to have to resit this particular exam, aren't they? Sadly.
Yeah.
So, what exam are you setting me for next week, Mr. O'Connor?
Can I just say, I love Mark Steel so much in his work that I hope he never hears this review. I really do.
Yeah, we won't link him to it. And don't tell him, will you, dear listener?
Next week's homework. Well, do you want me to tease or do you want me to go straight in? It's up to you.
Show us a bit of leg.
All right. This is...
Oh, I didn't mean that literally. Could you put that away, please?
That isn't my leg, actually, but thanks for the compliment. This is, I think you could say, although it doesn't bill itself as this, it's a spin-off transfer from ITV to the BBC. It's a current programme. I suppose once I tell you what it is, you could reasonably say to me, well, what are the chances of that happening?
Well, that would have to be Harry Hill. It
is Harry Hill, but what is it on Harry Hill? I don't know if you know this one at all, actually, because I didn't know about it.
It's not Grange Hill, is it? I like Grange. I like Harry Hill. No, I was floundering. I couldn't name a single thing which had come from ITV to the BBC. Not for yonks, anyway.
Well, his huge hit at ITV was Harry Hill's TV Burp. Which was massive, which featured the superb writing of, amongst others, David Quantick, who was a funny guy. But having said that, he's not writing on this one. It is called Harry Hill's World of TV.
Right.
And the people in the press office at the BBC hilariously describe it as Harry takes the lid off the world of TV. Well, thanks a lot for that. That tells us a lot more than we knew from Harry Hill's World of TV, doesn't it?
Okay. Is this the equivalent of Clive James's TV reviews?
I think it's probably the natural progression, really. I mean, I've chosen, it's a 6-part, and I've chosen episode 4, where he investigates. He goes under the covers to pun of police dramas. So he's looking at police dramas in this episode. So it's Harry Hill's World of TV, episode 4, police dramas, on the iPlayer now, if you're listening to this fairly recently.
Right, which I am, funnily enough. I'm assuming then there is only one series as we speak.
So far, yeah. I mean, this is, let's say it's a brand new thing. It's only recently aired on terrestrial. So it's quite a new thing, really.
Okay. Right. On social media or anti-social media, we are at Comedy Slab on Twitter. We'd love you to follow us there. Same handle, at Comedy Slab, for our Facebook page. Do like that as well, if you'd be so kind. And a recommendation in person or via a Zoom screen or other video conferencing software is available. But to recommend the Comedy Slab to friends, family and so on be hugely appreciated, and hopefully they will appreciate you and us as well. And a nice generous star rating on Apple iTunes podcast, Apple podcast, not necessarily in that order, but you get the idea. And a little description of how you've had to clutch your sides with Shane's hilarity from week to week. He finds that amusing as well.
And that's it from us. Thank you very much for your company. We've enjoyed yours. Hope you've enjoyed ours. And just to completely demolish those horrible stereotypes, I'm off now to go and work on a building site. And anyone who says I'm not, I'm going to punch them right in the chops.
Right. And I'm going to have a glass of fizzy wizzy.
Are you? You're going to get some new insurance as well while you're out there.
Yes. I'm going to compare it with other comparable brands. Simples.